Cammann. Is that the right way I pronounce it, Georgia?
Cammann.
Yep. Georgia has been an avid seeker of adventure and knowledge all her life, although her passion to learn about the connection between our mental, physical, and emotional and spiritual bodies began 47 years ago. She became formally trained as a metaphysical practitioner back in 2000. Just as her own conscious awakening began in earnest, she's a Reiki master, also trained in numerous other healing modalities, a quantum healing hypnosis practitioner, blogger, activist for conscious change, health, wellness, health and wellness, a metaphysical counselor, and intuitive. Over the last 21 years, she has worked with and mentored many young starseeds and others. She also worked in outreach programs for the homeless and served as a member of the board of a nonprofit for 9 years called Teen Talking Circles, as well as a facilitator giving teens a safe space to be heard and witnessed. Through her experiences in her own awakening process, as well as with others, including many in her extended family, she became acutely aware of the inadequacies of our current mental health paradigm and began speaking out about it in order to bring a deeper understanding regarding the labels of mental illness, altogether a much wider perspective, Many of those she's worked with have been diagnosed with mental disorders, which were actually rooted in their own spiritual awakenings and life experiences. Again, welcome, Georgia. Thank you. I'm so excited to have you. And I'm not going to say much more. I mean, that was a lot. And I would love for you to elaborate and share a little bit more for the listeners, for those that may be listening in live. Also, when we upload this to YouTube, people may find your information to be helpful, especially those struggling with mental illness or even, slight depression and so forth. So go ahead and please elaborate more about your experiences and what you've been doing for the past 30, 40 years.
Great. Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak up about this because I think it's really important. I get these nudges from the universe and they start tapping me on the shoulder and I'm stubborn. And a lot of times it's happened many times in my life and I kind of ignore it. Yeah, that's a good idea. And I push it off to the side, but I'm busy with this and it just keeps tapping me and the tap gets harder. And this has come up for me again recently, the issue of mental health out there, because I see with the current situation of where we're at as a planet. And I think there's probably nobody watching this that doesn't know what I'm talking about. There's a lot of anxiety and stress and high rates of suicide and fallout from a lot of the issues that have come about because of this virus and other things. And it's just an unstable time for a lot of people. And I, years ago, probably 11 years ago, I started a Facebook page called Seeing Mental Health Through New Eyes. And I posted some things in there and then I kind of forgot about it over time. I got busy with some other projects and it sat there and it didn't go anywhere. I just didn't pay. It was kind of out of my radar. And then all of a sudden this last year, I've noticed it keeps getting hits. People are looking. I know people are looking. They're looking for help. They're looking for a wider perspective or some a way to deal with all this. And so I decided to start speaking up about it again because I'm getting a lot of clients myself as a healer. I do a lot of healing, kind of metaphysical counseling. And I get a lot of calls from people that are suicidal, that are having a really hard time, especially young people, in their 20s, 30s, looking for help or some kind of support. So what I have to say, I first want to do a disclaimer and say that anybody who is getting mental health therapy through the Western medical system. I'm not here to tell you what to do. I am just speaking experientially from my own experiences. That's it. And the experiences that I've been through, that I've watched in my family. My family's riddled with mental illness, and witnessing it in others. And that's all I'm doing. I'm relaying what I've learned through experience, and then people have to make up their own minds. But I spent a lot of time over the last probably 30 years traveling to other cultures, other indigenous cultures. I went to Uganda, I went to Jamaica, I spent time in Mexico with some of the people in the Huichol culture, the Indians there. And I was drawn, as I was going, I was doing humanitarian work, but at the same time, as a healer, I was searching for other perspectives. And every time I went on a trip, I would carve out time to meet another type of a healer, whatever that healer may be. I just trusted what came up. And every time was an amazing experience, whether it was a shaman, a bush doctor, a Christian pastor, it didn't matter. I ran into some amazing people, and I spent time with them, talking to them and getting their perspectives on things. And that all affected the way I saw things. It started to shift and change my whole attitude towards mental health, because I saw that there was so much more to it. And then my own spiritual awakening began about 20 years ago, and it hit me right between the eyes like a dark night of the soul. I was not expecting it. I had no idea what was happening to me, but I felt like catapulted into these experiences that were causing me to question my mental health. And it was a really tough time, because there was nobody to turn to. I was going around to people asking, do you have any idea? Where can I go? Who can I talk to? I was talking to teachers. Nobody seemed to be able to tell me. I knew it wasn't anything a therapist was going to be able to help me with at this point, or a clergy or anything like that. And I was really at a loss. So the first experience I had that was the catalyst for me, that really threw me into this a totally different way of thinking, was I was sitting with a group of friends one day. They were healers as well. And I can't even remember what we were talking about, but out of my mouth comes the words, I'm going to have to die for what I believe in here, what I'm doing here. And I kind of stopped, and they just kind of looked at me, and I looked at me, and I went, I don't even know where that came from. It was the weirdest thing. And I just kind of brushed it aside. I said, never mind. I don't even know why I said that. So as time went on, I started, that thought anchored in me, and I couldn't let go of it. It was like it was looping in my head, and I started to have dreams about, I could tell that it was me, but I was screaming from my third chakra, and it was like a hurricane, a blast of energy coming out, and it was obliterating everything in front of me. And I'm just watching this. I can hear this scream, and it's coming out in energy, and I'm just going, what is going on? I was truly at a loss.
Mm.
So I ended up going on a family trip to New York City, and it was a terrible time to be in the city for me. I love New York. I've been there many times, and it's been wonderful, but this was not that time. I needed to be in a quiet place, and I needed to be out in nature, and I was on concrete. Central Park wasn't doing it for me, and I could feel myself slipping away. Something was going on internally with me, and I couldn't stop. I could feel myself. All I could call it was a soul ache. And it got worse and worse until I would wake up in the morning, and I would rock, and I would hold my sides, and I'd go, what is wrong with me? I feel like I'm dying, but it felt like a soul death more than anything. And I I was on that trip and I had to act like everything was fine around all my family members who didn't have a clue what I was going through. I'd go down in the morning, I'd go to Starbucks and I'd reach for the door handle to open the door, and my hand would crash into the glass because the dimensions were shifted. The handle looked like it was in one place, but it was actually a few inches to the left. So
Yes.
those strange things were happening. And so I got right before I had left, I went to a bookstore, a local holistic bookstore, and they had a speaker there. It happened to be a female shaman. And I just, it was a fluke, so to speak, which I don't believe in coincidences. And she was there speaking, and I remembered her name. And she's about 4 hours from me. I'm in Seattle. She was in Portland. So I called her and I said, I don't know what's going on with me, but I feel like I have a huge soul ache that I can't explain, and I need to get help. And she said, you need to come for a ceremony. And so when I got home, I had the appointment set up. She made me promise I wouldn't drive home because I'd be in an altered state, and I trusted the process. And I went down there, and I entered a room, and she said, this is going to take about an hour and a half. It was a soul retrieval, which is what she was doing. But at the time, I didn't even ask her what it was because I had learned to trust. I asked so many questions, and I realized you get what you need. You don't have to ask for it.
Right.
So I lay down on the table, and I have somebody grounding me and somebody drumming. And that was the last I remembered that I could remember anything. And I was all of a sudden sitting on a horse, and I was a young male Native American. And I was screaming that same scream. And I saw that I was going into battle and that I knew that I wasn't going to survive. And I was literally trying to prepare myself to die is basically what I was doing. And so the next thing I remember from that thing, she got down in my ear and it went straight down my body. I can still get chills every time I think about it. And she said, Georgia, you are not a male warrior in this lifetime. You are a female warrior here for the children. That's your role. You don't have to give up your life in this lifetime. And when she said that, I came out of it. And I woke up and everybody's eyes were really big. And she said, did you hear that? When I hadn't heard anything. And the rattles that she was shaking had exploded all over the floor. They were laying all over the floor in pieces. And I didn't remember anything. And she said, all I'll tell you is there was a very dark energy from a past life for you. And you and I rode in, and we took it out in half the time it normally takes us to do it. So we made a pretty good team. But I had been having these horrible nightmares that just wouldn't stop, and everything stopped. It cleared. I went back to my hotel room, and I had a dream that night about a white wolf, and it brought me some information and clarity, and I'd never had the issue again. It completely cleared it for me. And that really opened my eyes. And I tried to explain it to some friends. I even tried to explain it to other healers. And a lot of people there's a lot of people that understand energy, but they don't understand the different type. They don't know that shamanic energy is what it is. And energy is energy. It's physics. But there are different ways to use it. And different cultures and different people do it different ways. And it was really hard for people to understand, but I knew from a very deep place that if I had not gotten that help, I would have ended up in a comatose state. That's my strong feeling. I would have never come out of it. I would have just gone bye-bye, and I would have just been sitting there in a comatose state. You know, that's where I was going. My soul was leaving, and my physical spirit was here. The energy, but my psyche was going somewhere else. So that was a huge um, teaching for me. And I had a whole lot more experiences like that as time went on, as I was going through my own awakening. And I wasn't looking for them. I never thought in a million years that I would be experiencing those kind of things. They were so far out of my realm of thinking. I wasn't looking. They found me because that was my experience. And everybody has their own, and they're all different. They're all individual. And there's no timing to an awakening as far as trying to wake somebody up. It's an internal thing for each person. I think a lot of us realize that. But the attitudes in the indigenous cultures towards mental health is very different on a lot of levels. And a lot of the shamanic societies see those people as gifted, gifted psychically, and they're not all from here. There's a correlation there a little bit to a lot of the star seeds and people coming in that and the younger they are, their abilities are amazing. These children that are coming in, I'm watching them, my mouth hanging open, going, wow, they're old souls in young bodies, and they're here to do a job, but they're in a world and a density here that we're currently in that's extremely hard to be in, and they need help, and it mimics mental health issues that we see classically in the Western view of mental health. And I think, there's many broken systems in our society right now, and that's one of them. There's some wonderful therapists out there that are gifted and talented, but there are others that don't. They only get a small part of it. That I'm seeing more therapists showing up that are trained holistically to deal with the spiritual, mental, emotional, and physical, all of it, not just part of it. And that's what, if you can find someone like that, they're worth their weight in gold. But there's a lot of things you can do yourself to deal with your own anxiety. It's a huge one, huge.
Well,
And
please, yeah, share. I definitely, I appreciate everything. I mean, we've been friends and talking for quite some time, and I've heard some of your story, but I think this was the first time I really was able to focus in and really zero in and hear the enormity of what you experienced through this process, the shaman inviting you to ceremony and going through soul retrieval. I think that's absolutely fabulous. As a matter of fact, last night I went to a local beach and we had drumming and was there with the moon, looked like it was dancing on the ocean. I mean, I posted on Facebook. It was absolutely gorgeous. But a guy asked if he could do a clearing on me, and he had a drum and he was going up and down my body, and I just remember holding my hands and looking up to the sun like, this is it. I mean, to the moon. This is it. I am whole, and I will continue to do my divine work to the best of my ability. You have done so much work, Georgia, working with youngins. I'd like for you to elaborate a little bit more on that with the nonprofit that you work with. What were some of the stories or experiences that you had with some of the youngins that you maybe came across? I know that probably, I don't know that, I mean, I do my own kind of guiding with my locals here where I live at, and I have lots of nieces and nephews, but I know I get attached easily, especially, emotionally attached. We want to see good
sure.
things happen. And so I'm just curious, what was that like for you? And share some stories if you don't mind, and some success stories as well. I mean, some of the challenges, but maybe how children were able to be, or teenagers guided into living to the best of their ability, a productive life, and where they're thriving. I'm hoping that that's what the organization was
Mm-hmm.
doing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you don't mind to share more about that.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. I got the strong nudge to speak out about mental health, but my other strong nudge that's followed me in my entire life is working with young people. And it became crystal clear that it was the star seeds that I was supposed to be working with. And they showed up. They showed up. I went to a local, a few years ago, a local coffee shop slash entertainment venue here and where I live, and kind of a community center of sorts. And it drew in a lot of young people, and a lot of them were homeless, but not all of them. A lot of them were talented and lit up, and some had big problems, but they were all mixed in together. And I started doing card readings there for a little while just to put myself in the community to observe. And I started to observe, and they showed up from everywhere. And I'm still in touch with a lot of them. And it's been 7-8 years since I did that. I know that I was supposed to cross paths with them, and I could tell. There could be 10 kids walking in the door, and I could pick the 2 that were star seeds. I don't know how. It's just a inborn sense, that I have, and I could tell, and I could tell what level they were on, and I could see that some of them struggled with some mental health issues, what looked like mental health issues, and some of them had issues like that in their family. My family was riddled with bipolar. I have bipolar, schizophrenia, OCD, you name. I mean, all different kinds of depression. But I also have come to learn that there's ancestral lineage that passes down till someone stops it from rolling forward.
Right.
And you can heal your ancestral line that way. And I've done a lot of work around that as well. And anybody can do it if you know how. And there's certainly ways to learn. But these kids came from a lot of that type of thing too. And there's a lot of that thinking that, oh my gosh, if this runs in my family, then I'm probably going to get it. Well, that's not necessarily the case. And a lot of times we might have a genetic propensity because from our lineage and past lives as well, we might hold that possibility in there, and then we come into a really traumatic situation and it blows up on us. And I've seen that happen a lot with kids and adults, where they were just triggered into what looked like bipolar or something like that. And so I almost got a prescription pad of a go-to, which is reconnecting back to the earth. It's on a shamanic level, but healers understand this too. They might work in slightly different ways, and we might not be shaman in this lifetime, but we carry that wisdom with us, and with that knowing, and what makes you feel better a lot of times, and you can help teach that to others. You're helping them remember. They've lost their connection. We've got such a high-tech world out there, and we're online with our devices all the time, and we're bathed in EMFs, and we've lost our connection to the earth. And the earth is conscious. It's alive. It's I could tell you strange stories about learning how alive a rock is, things like that. I didn't know all that. I learned it as I went along, and I became very, very connected to the earth. And the trees are very wise. And I tell I get lots of clients, young clients who have really bad anxiety, just with everything that's going on, lots of reasons for it, lots of bad anxiety. And it manifests in their physical, manifests in Crohn's disease and migraines and things like that. And they don't have the tools to stop it. So I always tell them, if it's even for 15 minutes a day, get outside and put your bare feet on the ground. If it's winter, and it's hard to do in the snow, but if it's winter and it's wet, put a towel down and put your bare feet on the towel if you have to. You know, just get out there, because you're pulling energy up from the earth through the bottom of your feet. And when you're leaning up against a tree, it's amazing. I've gone out. I'm not a real anxious person, but I've been getting these waves of anxiety these last few years of energy shifts that come through. And I'll just out of nowhere, this anxiety pops up. I'm going, what is going on here? You know, you're wringing your hands mentally going, what's the deal? I go outside, and 100% of the time it gets rid of it. And I either put my feet on the ground for 15 minutes at least, or I lean up against a tree and I visualize pulling my energy down, pushing it down into the earth, all my anxiety. I push it down into the earth and put it into the roots of the tree that transmutes that energy. And then I pull back up the energy the tree's giving me. I envision myself like I have roots growing out of the bottom of my feet, yes, and rooted into the ground, and that even a hurricane around me couldn't budge me, because I'm really deeply grounded. And right, it's amazing, the mind body connection, when you connect to that and you understand and you feel what you're thinking. It's very powerful. It's very, very surprising.
I do those same practices. So I absolutely know what you're referring to. And yes, it's amazing for sure.
I think we have a need. I think we've got a hunger to reconnect to something bigger than ourselves. And the earth is where it starts, because it's all connected. But the number one question I get in my quantum healing sessions and other clients is, what's my purpose? People want and need a purpose, and they don't know how to find it, you know. So I teach them how to get things to come to you versus going out and looking, digging, you know. I tell them to trust, let go, and allow, and just let it come to you and create itself. And it does. It's amazing. The more you can let go, it's hard to do, especially in our society, but the more you can let go, it's amazing how much shows up. That's how when you practice these things, you don't try it once. You make it a discipline, and it eventually becomes a way of life. And the more you see stuff work, the more a light bulb goes off and you go, damn, this stuff really works. You know, it's really
successful. That's right.
And that feeds itself. It creates a loop of energy, and you start creating more and more. But, you know, in the Western mental health system, there is no definitive test to tell you've got bipolar or schizophrenia. It's a checklist. It's just a checklist, and it's up to the discernment of the person that's giving the test. So, you know, it's not, the insurance companies won't cover somebody's visits unless there's a check there, and that's a label. And so you get labeled in this society, and there aren't labels for everything. There's a million shades of gray. This world is not black and white. And so that's where that's got to change. And I think people realize that and there's so many amazing things coming forward that I think that I see in the not that distant future, some amazing healing centers, med beds. I've heard about the med bed. The technology is out there. It hasn't been shared with us, and it's getting ready to be shared. And there are other modalities coming out as well. It looks crazy out there now, but it's not going to look that way for a whole lot longer in terms of, you know, in our lifetime in the next few years. I think we're going to be amazed at what we see. But, you know, shamanism might not resonate with everybody, but if it does, you know when you found your spot, when something just feels right to you. You may have been a shaman in another life, who knows, or many lifetimes. And it's there is an apprenticeship and a training that goes into shamanism. It's a gift, and it's passed down through cultures, but you can use the principles, and the principles are something anyone can use. And it really is all about being connected to the earth and all of life. And
Well,
looking at,
I think that it's more than just shamanism. I mean, there's many cultures that do this. I mean, we
yeah,
we refer to shamanism because that seems to be a common uh practice, if you will, in the spiritual communities and so forth.
mhm,
People talk about that, high priestesses and
yeah,
mystics and so forth. I consider myself a healer, a mystic, and a high priestess. I don't
mhm,
consider it. I know I am. I know who
right,
I am. So, and
yeah,
we're all blessed. We all have gifts. And I love that you're bringing this up and sharing that people, yes, everybody can participate. Nobody is, if they choose to. The we're going to take a break, and then when we come back, we'll have more of an open dialogue
yeah,
about mental illness and spiritual development versus mental illness, and how you know people are uh, pushed through the system and put on medications to uh,
mhm,
keep them from really developing and spiritually evolving. But I trust that really those that are well on their way and have any kind of foothold of who and what they are, because it is an internal thing. It's not out
mhm,
there somewhere. They know that the system is broken, that there's
yes,
something very wrong. And if they've had any kind of support, I'll say galactic support,
mhm,
I'm thinking spiritual support, spirit guides, ancestors, whatever you want to refer to, uh, there's a support, a knowingness that keeps you going, where you're able to not necessarily fight against the system, but learn how to navigate through it, so you're least unscathed as possible,
right, yeah,
or unmolested, if you will, right?
right,
Walking this planet unharmed, unmolested, and but yeah, okay. So let's just take
yeah,
just a couple minutes, because we're not going to play any music. Just if you need to get coffee or use the restroom, the bathroom, and we'll come back at 7:45. That's in 2 minutes.
okay, that
Okay,
sounds good. All right, see you
very
then.
good. Okay. Katie. Thank you, ma'am. Okay, welcome back, everyone. Thank you, Georgia. Again, I want to thank you for coming on and being a guest and sharing some of your experiences and your humanitarian work that you've done and working with youngins to give them guidance and a safe place to contact you and receive some help because it's much needed now. I mean, in my community, I'm here in Florida and Jacksonville, and I've been here 3 years from Maryland, and just recently have had a good amount of young women just really seeking some guidance, and a good handful of, and I have a detox. I do detoxes through ionic foot balancing detoxes to help women and kind of mentor and guide them and share information and
That's great.
different things that I do to detox my body and to connect with the earth and so forth and so on. So that kind of opens the door up for me to kind of get in and see where their mind's at. And, and they're so interested and they're hungry for information. They're going through their own experiences. So it's my intention, to the best of my ability, without losing myself in it, just to be an example of what I want to experience in this world. And therefore I can, invite others to join me. People like yourself. I mean, I've been looking up to you and other people on Facebook. I'm so happy that I've gotten to learn from you and
just kind of finding each other.
Yes.
Don't
and
we?
So many of us are coming together. I mean, you mentioned starseeds. I'll tell you, for those that might be interested, that may listen to this, if there's anybody live listening now, or if you decide to go on YouTube, when we upload this video, I would highly recommend Mary Rodwell's work and
Excellent.
Yes, about starseeds, crystal children, indigo children. I mean, there's all these labels, but the truth of the matter is all of us, everybody on this planet, even those that are walking around that are seemingly AI with no soul, right? Because we hear those things in our community, or at least I have, that are still have a sentience about them. And I'm not talking about clones, by the way. And I do believe that there are clones used for whatever dream spell they want to, run in the project and programs that they're running. But I don't really pay attention to all that stuff so much anymore, Georgia. I don't listen to the news. I don't watch TV. And a lot of people, even in alternative media, I just kind of am doing my own thing at this point, pulling my energy back to myself and just really focusing and harnessing. Yeah. But I wanted to mention, so the topic is mental health and the mental health system that we have available to people that are struggling with mental issues, be it diagnosis of bipolar, schizophrenia, ADHD, ADD, God knows what else. Right. Yeah. I know from my own experiences, and I'll just use myself as an example. I mean, when I was going through my awakening, I had a Kundalini activation and all my chakras were clear. My light body was fully lit up, and I was having some pretty far out experiences. And I was targeted, highly targeted. But the good news is, that's why I said prior to the break that anybody that has any kind of wit about them, any kind of knowingness already, knows that there's some very unfortunate things that take place in the mental health institutions and so forth, and will navigate themselves out. I was getting downloads as I had police coming in my door to do an investigation for a break-in, and they brought a mental health woman from Montgomery County to come and talk with me, and I got this message, Ida, tell him to leave. And I
Yep.
told him to leave, and they were trampling over each other's feet trying to get out the front door because
They
they
don't
were
have a
looking
clue.
for me to say something so that they
Right.
would have cause to say I'm mentally ill and take, want
But
to
you bring
put me
up a
away.
really good point, though, too, because the Kundalini Awakening, that's another extremely jarring experience, especially if you're not grounded. And that
Oh,
mimics a lot of
absolutely.
things that they
Well,
don't have a clue about. They don't have any idea what they're dealing with, you know?
no.
We're barely able to figure it out when we're going through it. I had the same ungrounded thing. I was seeing things that, one day a window was painted in a store, and then I go by it and it's not painted. I'm seeing all kinds of things that I realize they're dimensional, and I
Well,
knew that, but I didn't know
there's
how to
different
stop it.
holograms that are being played out. And when
Right.
you are grounded, yes, it's very important to stay grounded. I mean, I was stepping out of my body, walking around my apartment.
I wasn't grounded when I was
Yeah.
going through it, and it
No,
it
no,
blew my
neither was
circuits
I.
in my body.
Neither was
Yeah.
I. I mean, I went up and I was asked, Ida, what are you going to do? And I came back down. I
You can't
didn't
make this stuff
understand.
up.
All I know is I was feeling very blissful, and everything I would say I was creating. I was using telepathy. All my gifts were online. It was quite fascinating. But my situation's a little different, and I don't even want to go there because we don't need to talk
There is
about it.
a mixture. There's a mixture of psychic ability in there, and your psychic abilities come forward, and you are seeing and experiencing things that maybe somebody standing next to you isn't, but they're real.
That is
They're
correct.
real, and that's what being witnessed in that, instead of the judgment. It's so painful to be judged, and I thought that I had a spiritual healing community to lean on, but they didn't understand it. A lot of them, it was out of their realm of thinking, and I got peppered with a lot of judgment, just like people do with mental health labels. There's a stigma that people don't understand, and they make assumptions. And anybody who's struggling with something like that, even if you don't understand it, don't judge it. Don't judge it. Witness them and just be there.
Well,
Just
I will say no. And I appreciate what you just said. And there's a difference between discernment and judgment. And I think that
right.
and I'm not saying what you're saying. I understand what you're saying, or I understand, should I say. But I think it's very important because there are entity attachments. People are being manipulated and controlled. There are dark, I mean, we have entities that take over bodies. And I'm not trying to scare anybody, but that is true. If you are not grounded within your own being, or, some give consent unknowingly that they are giving consent. And there are these anomalies that take place. Am I saying it's happening? I don't know how much is happening, but it seems to be. There's a lot of talk
going to be out there.
Right. But I come across people, and I know, like you, when I'm dealing with a starseed or not, for sure, or a crystal child, especially the little ones. Oh, they're amazing. But I also know when I'm dealing with somebody that has attachments, or possibly something else going on, be it reptilian. And listen, I have reptilians in my family. I'm not one of these people, and I want to be very clear. I'm not one of these people that, reptilians are all whatever. I just don't do it. I don't believe it. I know people that are reptilian, and I have family members that I love very much. So, I think that that's just another prejudice. Like when we say all Mexicans or all Spanish or all Arabs or all blacks, or whatever you want to define, or how to separate people on the outside. Same thing with these galactic beings. We all have different DNA, and
we all have different blueprints too, and we come
Well,
in and
that's right.
your experience might be to experience that. My experience dealt with a great deal with the demonic forces. I wasn't looking for that either. Not everybody's made the same, and they don't all have the same calling, and they don't all have the same purpose for being here. They're
Right.
different. And so you can't put everybody in the same category, you know.
Well, I agree, Georgia, but we see that so much on social
Yeah.
media. We see
Well,
it in people in videos, and
the
I
judgment.
will admit I'll be the first one to, when I first had my awakening and found out about reptilians, I kind of knew things way before I had I believe I came in awake for sure. But I know that I was using projects and programs. So I know that mind control and manipulation and trauma-based mind control was definitely part of my experience, I'll say.
Right.
I
Right.
don't believe I experienced any of that at this point. I believe that is those programs have ended for me. I suppose until I don't know. But back to the mental health. So I remember going to my doctor because I was diagnosed ADHD and bipolar and being told when I found out that they were fictitious illnesses or diagnoses, that be careful who you upset. There are powerful forces out there by my doctor. Now, I don't know if you've ever seen, there's a video that Mary Rodwell did. Yeah, my mind went blank for a minute. Mary Rodwell was talking about a scientist talking about sharing information that people with ADHD or bipolar, well, they mimic bipolar and ADHD mimic each other actually, in a lot of ways. The overactive,
Yeah.
the hypersensitive bipolar when you're not sleeping for days and you're going in psychosis and all this other stuff.
And a lot of it can come from trauma.
Yeah, well, and that too. But she mentioned that it's they refer to the children or people as letter people, which I thought was fascinating because I was always told, teased about or mocked because I talked a lot and it was hard for me to stay on one thing. But if I was talking to somebody else that had ADHD, we would be able to have a lovely conversation, both talking to each other and completely process everything that was said.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I have those kinds of conversations, So, but I was able to get myself off all the medication. Everybody's not so lucky. But I was
Well,
out of,
the
yeah.
medications are a big one. They're passing psychotropic drugs out like they're candy, and your GP can fill the prescription. They have no business filling prescriptions for those kind of medications. And I don't want to tell people absolutely don't take them, but I can tell you that your brain will be a lot better off and your body if you can get away from any medication. If there's a way to find a natural way to deal with it or a holistic way, I got off any prescriptions that I was on, and I
absolutely did too. I agree. I laid in the bed. I said this when I realized and I became aware of all the things that I became aware of. I just said, this is it. It is over. And I laid and when I walked out of Dr. Tannenbaum's, and I don't mind sharing his name because it's the truth. What I'm sharing is what I experienced. And I have paperwork and testimony and so forth. So I'm not too concerned. But, and he threatened me 3 times saying, be careful. There are powerful forces out there. I said, that is it. So I weaned myself off all the ADHD. And I'll be the first one to admit that I was, actually asking for more than I really needed. I mean, I will say the medication that I was taking, Adderall, was helpful for me to focus my writing because I noticed my writing is very sloppy when I'm not on it. But when I am on it, my writing is much neater and I'm able to focus on one thing. But I've learned that like B6, vitamin B6 helps with it.
Yeah.
With racing, and sitting still and getting silent and those kinds of practices, and just really being disciplined and earnest about healing will definitely, because you are absolutely right. Trauma changes our brain, changes our synapses, the way it fires, all of the neurons. Bruce Lipton talks about this kind of stuff, which
The
is
biology of belief.
yes,
You
yes.
know,
So, I mean, there's
when you're
just so
really
much information
traumatized,
out there.
when you're really traumatized in childhood and you don't address it, or any time in your life, when you have really traumatic experiences that leave a big impact and you don't address it, they don't go away. You can't ignore them. What happens is you emotionally get stuck back where that trauma was, and your
Sure.
body ages, but your emotional state doesn't. So you can be a 14-year-old sitting in a 60-year-old body, and I've seen it many, many times. You have to look at it. The only way out is through. You can't go around it. You've got to go through it, and you need to do it with a practitioner that is, somebody that can address it on a holistic level. We all know what big pharma, the pharmaceuticals, there's some that probably save lives, but if we really paid attention to our lifestyle, what we're eating, what we're putting in our minds, what we're, that focus on the TV and the mainstream media and what that's doing to people, if we took all that out and replaced it with healthy things, we would get rid of so much of the mental illness in this world.
Well,
A
that's
lot
what I
of
was
it's
just getting ready to say. The food plays a huge part, and
and pharmaceuticals.
our thought process, when your gut is not clean, that's why doing these detoxes to me are so important. And when your gut is not clean, or you're got a lot of parasites or candida, those kinds of things, they will play tricks on your mind, if you will.
Yeah.
And so yes, cleaning the body out, grounding, walking in nature, getting silent. Yeah, that's right.
You can't just do it once or twice. It's got to be a way of living, and it's not that hard. If you do it a little bit at a time, it's amazing, and you start to feel the difference.
Well, absolutely, I agree. But the biggest thing is getting people to stick with it. People are disciplined. We're constantly being everything is vying for our attention. Everything is asking for our attention, for our focus, for our consciousness, for us to give our energy over to.
And that's by design. We know that's by design.
Yeah.
That's why you can't change anybody. I can't change anybody. I can't heal anybody who comes to me. I can support them in their own healing, but it has to start with them having that deep desire to change. And you're right. We are so used to having a quick fix. And that's what the pharmaceutical industry has done. It passes out, here, take a pill for this, take a pill for that, take a vaccine for this, take a vaccine for that. That's not the answer. And it never will be. It's just disconnecting people more and more because it doesn't support health. It doesn't support.
I want to make a disclaimer right now on the show that we are not medical advisors. We are not licensed. We are not practitioners, right? And we don't discuss certain things on the show because, but people can decide for themselves.
That's my personal experience.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I did, and mine for that matter. I mean, I don't want anybody to go out and stop taking their medication because I'm sharing that it was a very personal thing for me. But it has served me well. But coming off the medications, sitting still, going through the dark night of the soul, being in hermit mode, I stopped dating, I stopped having sex, I stopped everything. I put to a stop so that I could sit with Ida. And it's gone on since 2017 or 18 when I moved here. Right before I moved here, I just said, 2 suitcases of my soul, I'm going to Florida. I'm not doing this anymore. And I walked away and left everything that I knew my entire life in Maryland, where I grew up. And I moved here, and I went back home to visit for a couple weeks. and I was driving up and down roads that I used to, had a lot of experiences and memories. And I'm thinking, there's nothing here for me anymore. Even my family that's there. When you get to a certain point where you're really ready to let go and you're truly choosing your highest and best life, if you will, people, places, and things will seem to fall away. And the whole thing is to be willing to let them go with love and compassion for yourself, for them, that everybody's on their own journey, and that, holding and being attached to anybody or anything, um, it's difficult, Georgia,
sometimes
because
the
we have
only
family members and and husbands and children and sisters, brothers, siblings, people that we care about. But I've just come to terms with. Yeah, go ahead. I'm listening.
No, I was just going to say sometimes the only mode of transportation you have is that saying is a leap of faith, because that's literally all you have. And sometimes you have to be the driver of your own car and make that leap. It takes courage. It takes courage to change. Even when we're miserable in a situation, it's familiar. And sometimes deep down, there's some kind of comfort you get from the familiar. And so you just, you stay stuck. And sometimes you just have to get past the fear and do it. I think fear, don't you, is what holds so many people back.
Of course.
It just, that's it. That's it.
Fear and lack of responsibility.
Yeah. Yeah. Personal responsibility.
But they want their codependency is so great that they refuse to do anything for themselves and expect somebody else to fix it for them. Right? It's not fear, it's lack of self-awareness. Yes.
Yeah.
Fear, I agree. I'm sorry.
We've been pushed into disempowerment in every way we possibly can. And it really shows in society right now. We have to take the bull by the horns and just like you said, we've got to be empowered. We are actually there. If there's one thing I've learned over the years, it's that we really are amazingly powerful as individuals and especially collectively.
Yes,
I mean,
we are.
If we made up our minds as a group, we could whip this planet into shape. And,
well, let's talk about some solutions. Let's do that, because we have probably about maybe 15 minutes or so left before we have you share your information and contact information. And I definitely want to do that for people to reach out to you if they want to have a session with you. I know that they'll be in good hands. I would.
Yeah.
But yes, I think solutions are doing things like this, just having a conversation, opening the dialogue, sharing ideas to bring, but it really starts in our local communities. Like I kept, or even you, I remember talking to you a couple of years ago saying, oh, I don't know what to do. What do I do? How do I begin? And then it kind of just showed up, like you said, the things just start showing up. But they showed up once I healed what needed to be healed, so that I could be a supportive for others.
So you just nailed it.
Teachers and all students. Nobody is up here and someone down. I think we all support, even those that I feel I'm helping, they're helping me learn more about how to help. So we're always helping and assisting and learning.
So you just nailed it, that the beginning of change has to be within. All change comes within.
Oh, I absolutely agree.
It radiates out. That creates everything else. So we can't change anything but ourselves, but we have people to help and support us along the way. And that's what we have to find, those people when we need them. And we have to go inside. Our thoughts create our reality. And don't believe everything you think. Like all those little buzzing thoughts that go through your head all the time. They're not you. They're not you. They're just things.
Well, yes, and I agree. And, you know, I highly recommend for anybody listening to this video when it is uploaded to YouTube, or if there's anybody listening live right now, and I haven't even checked, usually I'll check and make sure it's on my page on Facebook. I don't use a whole lot of social media outlets, but I trust that whoever, even if we help one person doing the show, then I'm, you
Yeah,
know,
that's what it's about.
easy to my heart. So, but I will say, changing your diet is the first step.
Get rid of the toxins.
That's right. Changing your diet, doing even a fat, like I just recently, a couple weeks ago, did a 3-day fast, just water. That's it. Nothing else.
The
And
intermittent.
I allowed I didn't intermit. I just did 3 days, no food, just water,
Right.
72 hours. And I break it with juice, you know, fresh juice. I'll juice like, you know, some celery, cucumber, and apple, and maybe a little lemon and ginger. But I just let myself rest the whole time. But I give my body a break to not have to burn energy by having to digest the food, you know. And there's so much information out there for even
It is.
intermittent.
It's becoming more and more popular too. There's a lot of information out
Well,
there.
it's so helpful. I mean, it really
Dr.
does
Eric
recharge
Berg is
you.
good. Yeah.
Recharge you. I'm sorry. Recharge. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And the water, keeping your water filtered and clean. I mean, the water testing they did here in the Seattle area was full of pharmaceuticals because people are peeing them out and they're going through the water system, not to mention the fluoride and things like that. So the water is a huge, huge one. And, you know, that just, you can't change everything in your house maybe overnight, but be conscious of what you're putting. Your deodorants have aluminum in them. Get some that don't have aluminum in it. You know, there's ways you can do that. You know, when you go to get a filling, if you have to go to the dentist, don't get one with metal. The mercury.
Well, I'm actually going to the dentist tomorrow, and I have one cavity from when I was a kid that had mercury filling, and I'm having them remove it and replace it with the I guess it's porcelain or some other property out rather than and yes, changing deodorant and non-fluoride toothpaste, all of that. I mean, and then I do my detoxes. I'll tell you, I probably have, I don't know, let's just guess $600 to $1,000 worth of products in my pantry that I stopped using once I started with the Ionic Foot Balancer. And Dr. Sam kept saying, she was like, Ida, just buy it, get it. And I was reluctant. And then when I did, and I noticed the benefits I got from it, I started offering it as a service to people. And I've had so much good, it's amazing. Even, I mean,
you know, when I changed my diet and my lifestyle, when I really changed my lifestyle, I, one by one, I didn't even notice it till I looked back in fully. I got rid of everything that was wrong with me. I got rid of any allergies. I got rid of asthma. I got rid of any kind of depression I felt. That went away. Yes. I got rid of acid reflux. I got all that stuff left. It's, you know, we are what we eat and what we put in our minds. We are literally creating our own reality.
Yes.
I've never been healthier, you know, and
I will tell you, I'm not eating, you know, I go in and out like I recently. So I believe these detoxes have helped me remove nicotine out of my body. So I was able to, I mean, I smoked since I was 12 years old. We're talking 40 years, Georgia, I smoked. And I quit March 3rd. And I haven't looked back. And I'm so blown away that I did that. 40 years I smoked cigarettes. It's so amazing.
That just proves it's possible.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, absolutely is possible. I just think that everything happens in divine time. When you're really ready to make changes and you really want to turn your life around and you know, and heal and be a beacon of light for others and a guide, however you can. You make the necessary, I didn't come here to do, and continue in sex, drugs, and rock and roll. It just was not going to continue. It was like a loop for me. I kept going back to the same till I finally had my awakening and realized nobody's doing this to me. I'm doing it to myself. There's nobody out there to blame anymore. I'm responsible for myself. That's the biggest, I think, challenge for anybody is to say, nope, I have no one to blame. Even when it comes to, we can't change harm that was done to us as children. And no, it's not giving consent or saying, yes, I deserve that somehow. Absolutely not. We can't change what happened, but what we can do is take the necessary action to be fully responsible in the now, to heal what needs to be healed so that we can thrive and we can forgive, most importantly, ourselves. Because self-betrayal was a huge thing for me. I betrayed myself. I continued to put myself in compromising situations. And
when you love yourself, you don't have to do that anymore.
That's right. That's right. And when you take care of yourself and you invest in yourself and you put value, you start honoring your own value, your own worth, and you invest in yourself, you're not willing to accept anything less but love.
I also,
yeah.
Victimhood is rampant right now. People are being, our children are being trained to think of themselves as victims. That is exactly the opposite of the direction we should be going. And
well, that's why I'm hoping we have another show, because we need to teach some empowering skills for these people, Georgia.
Yeah. Gratitude is my go-to. And every single morning I wake up, and before I get out of bed, I just give gratitude for everything I have. And if it's that I open my eyes, that there's always something to be grateful for, no matter how bad your life might seem or how challenging or how many things are going on. The gratitude, it's not just feeling good and being nice. It energetically, it shifts things. It shifts your thinking, and it shifts you out of victimhood and into empowerment. And the more you do it, the more that happens. And it's amazing when you can see that take root, because
sounds like we've been listening to the same spirit guides, star seeds, guidance, because I do the same thing. Well,
every time,
there was a time when I woke up and I would have the same loopy thoughts, thinking about the same thing. And then I was able to turn that around. And now I wake up saying, I love you, Ida. Greetings, source. I'm ready for my day. I call everything to me of love.
Even if you don't feel like it sometimes. I hate to use the word fake, but faking it till you make it. Say it anyway. Say it anyway. Tell yourself affirmations until you start to believe, because you will. Just like you hear on the mainstream media, they're giving you a scenario and you're listening to it over and over. You see what it's creating. Create something opposite. Give yourself the same repetition in the opposite direction.
That's fabulous information right there. That's huge, really, because it's a simple thing that can really turn things around for people in a big way. And it don't cost a dime. It costs your energy and your effort and your discipline, and that's it. And that's
another thing that people can do something about is clutter. Their spaces that they need to have a sacred. I don't care if it's a closet, have a sacred space. It just, there's no reason to have the clutter and the you can keep it clean and decluttered, and that frees your mind up. It's amazing what that will do on how it makes you feel internally when you're not surrounded by chaos. That's another way to pay attention to your emotions and how you're feeling. It makes a big difference.
Georgia, I appreciate you so much. I know I talk a lot, you're one day I'm going to be like you. I'm going to have some patience. Yes.
You're going to be like you.
I admire you. I have so much respect and love for you. And I just really appreciate what you do.
Well, I appreciate
Sometimes I just
you.
read, I mean, I don't know if you noticed, but I repost a lot of the information that you put out because I think it's important. And you
Yeah.
are well, you write well and you articulate well, and I'm pretty good,
Yeah.
when I put my mind to it, but I really appreciate you. And
I
we're
appreciate that.
getting it's 8:20. Yeah, I'd like to give this opportunity just for some last few maybe comments that you might have, also for you to share your contact information. Of course, I will put that in the comment section if there's anybody that's interested in having a session with Georgia, um, or want to contact her. I will post her information underneath the video in the comment section, and I will tell you, you will be in good hands if you reach out to have a session. I trust that you'll get the help you need. I've been um, connecting with Georgia for several years now, and she has been a huge support for my own some of the challenges I've experienced during my awakening. So I appreciate you, and I want you to know that.
Appreciate you too. I
Yes.
really do. I appreciate the light that you bring. So
So,
it's not a one
is
woman
there
show.
anything that you want to share? And I'm hoping to have you back, Georgia, where we can now we were able to get this going. We had some issues with Zoom a few times, so we've had to reschedule. So I think things were a little bit more up in the air, but I definitely believe that whatever was meant to come out was shared in
Yeah.
this video, and that maybe we can do another one maybe in a month or two and have you come back and really talk about solutions to some of these challenges and creating uh, a supportive environment. People, building a platform for other women, men, doesn't matter. I mean, my heart does focus more on women because I have a huge love for my sisters, although I appreciate everybody.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I tend to gravitate towards women more. I think there's
I
some,
work with both, but I tend to get
yeah,
a lot of women as well.
yeah.
A lot of young women. But yeah, I have a website that it's not the best timing, but I just decided to dive in and do this anyway. But I'm redoing my website. I've had it for 20 years and I wanted to revamp it. So that should be done hopefully in the near future. But it's in natureswisdom.com is the website, and you can just check back when it's up. But um, I think at the bottom of this video, you were going to put my email address. If somebody wants to get a hold of me, I'd be happy to take your email, questions or concerns or that type of thing, and whatever you might need, and we can go from there. So,
Very
and I
good.
have a blog called gacammann.com. It's a blog, but
Okay. Very good.
expresses.
So all those contact information will be posted underneath this video in the comment section. Again, reach out to Georgia if you're interested in having a session with her or just want to communicate and see, exactly what she's offering. If you're not able to get uh open up her website yet because it's being revamped. So they're not able to reach her through her website, definitely contact her through her email and check out her blog. I've never checked out your blog. I would like to see what you're writing and what you got going on in there. I'm
Oh,
sure
universal food for thought, one snack at a time.
I love it. Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Okay. Well,
but
this has been
yeah,
fabulous. I so appreciate you. Yeah,
yes, thank you, Ida. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate you too, and everything
Georgia.
you do.
Yes. Thank you. So, well, we got 5 minutes. It's up to you. I'm not rushing you off, but is there anything that you want to maybe last
Just one,
comment?
I will make a comment that we're being forced into dark nights of the soul. A lot of us that haven't already been through them. And a dark night of the soul is basically pushing you into some challenging times to get you to wake up and to start seeing things and growing and expanding yourself. And that's also happening to the collective out there as a planet. We're seeing it all around us. So anybody who's feeling really stuck or unstable and isn't sure where to turn or what to do, I'm happy to try to give you some clarity on that, because there's going to be a lot of that going on. You can't get through this birth process without it. You can't get birthed unless you go through the birth canal. And we always learn when things are challenging. We don't learn when they're easy and perfect. That's not why we're here. We're here to learn and grow. And we're in a great shift of consciousness right now. So we need to support each other. We need to be witness each other, and to know that there are people out there and that you're not alone.
That's right.
They put it out there to make it look like you're all alone, but you're not. There's lots and lots of people like you.
Well, I think that part of that too comes from, I think that, there's initiations that we go through, and I'm not going to get into that right now because we're at the end of the show, but I definitely went through some initiations, and
I did too.
Yes. So, and our next show, part 2, or we'll talk about initiations and spiritual development. And
I'm not sorry I went through it. It was tough, but looking back, I'm glad I wouldn't trade what I learned.
Oh, I agree. Absolutely. Well,
it was challenging.
And now, more than anything, I look forward to the lessons and the challenges, because I don't resist the way I did. There was, I definitely, I didn't understand what the heck was going on. And I was trying to keep myself, grounded enough to not lose my mind.
Resistance stops the flow.
Yeah. Well, and, I mean, Dark Night of the Soul is not an easy thing, but really it's an ego death. And when I say ego death, I'm not talking about, people talk about, and I'll just say this and then we can end it, or if you want to respond, but people talk about, you got to get rid of the ego and let go of all darkness. Darkness and evil are 2 different things. One, definitely not the same thing. And we have personalities to navigate. I like my personality. I like that I'm a very outgoing, vocal person, but I have so much love and so much compassion and empathy for others. But I am a straight shooter. I will speak my mind. And I'm okay with that. Do I think I'm always right? Absolutely not. I'm open to, falling on my butt sometimes, or possibly saying, hey, you know what? I was wrong, my perspective, or I misunderstood, or whatever it is. You have to be able to do that.
You're authentic.
Well, that's right.
What we need authenticity. It's really important.
So are you, Georgia. And that's why I attract my own kind. I appreciate you.
Yeah.
You're the best. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you.
Very good. I'll talk to you soon.